In this video, I'm guided to talk about how we make peace with those wounds of abandonment, those wounds of being misunderstood. And if you're on your spiritual journey, if you identify with being a starseed or empath or highly sensitive, then this will resonate with you because you would have gone through life maybe possibly never feeling abandonment or having that wound, but definitely misunderstood. And so that's what we're going to unpack. How do you make peace with that? Because the energies that are coming forward, the messages that I'm being given from the divine for the collective is that of letting go and allowing it to be what it is and getting comfortable with what it is. Being your true, authentic self, not a watered down version, not a conformative version, not somebody that society has wanted you to be, and so you have moulded yourself. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hi and welcome to Oak Door. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Claire Attia. For those that are returning subscribers, thank you, thank you, thank you. And those abandonment wounds, and I've done lots of videos on healing and how we heal that, and I've got the podcast that is currently doing a series on inner child healing where we deal with abandonment and the things we can actually do to heal that. That's not the focus of this video. The focus of this video is moving forward from that, having healed that. How do we then show up in the world as ourselves, as our true, authentic soul essence? How does that show up in the world, and how do we deal with that? Because if we are starseeds, if we are empaths, if we are highly sensitive or indigos or whatever label you apply to the gifts and the insights that you've been given, and it is just a label, let's be honest, it's basically you have attuned yourself to a level of alignment with the energies, and you can feel what's going on, and you can see past the veil of illusion. That's basically what's going on. But within that, there is a lot of push-pull within us, because we have the 3D world that is going on and is still going on, although that I have noticed a massive change in that, especially in the last 6 months. I have been saying that the last 2 years, but the last 6 months it's kind of superseded. And it was interesting because I was working today and a client actually said to me, the world is so noisy. And I knew exactly what she meant, because it is noisy, it is loud, and it is challenging to navigate through that, to find that inner peace within yourself, and to be able to show up as that peaceful soul. Now, before we actually get into this, peaceful doesn't mean passive. Peaceful is just being at peace, at one. You are a balance in your center. You are anchored to the earth while connected to the divine, and you have become a conduit for the information coming in and a beacon of light, so that others, if they choose to, using their free will, can also start to achieve that for themselves. It's about who you are as a soul being, who you're showing up as, what you want to co-create on this physical plane. And as I said, it is challenging. It is challenging. We have all that noise, but we also have the inner noise. We also have that inner voice. And when we do have wounds, and even when those wounds have been healed, there is still that, because healing never stops, it's ongoing. But even if we've dealt with that big stuff, we still keep peeling off those layers. We still keep finding more. And so even if you don't feel that rejection anymore when you are in the company of others, or that fear of rejection, or that fear of being misunderstood, there will still be a little bit of you that is still playing into that paradigm. And it's about turning the volume up on that, learning how to navigate, because that's what's being asked of us now. The healing, the time for the healing. And yes, as I said, healing continues until the day we take our last breath. But hopefully the big stuff's been done, and now we're moving into, okay, how do I navigate this? How do I show up as my true self with those sensibilities, and honouring those sensibilities within myself, and yet not be so sensitive to other people's projections? Because that's all they are at the end of the day. And even when you know that, it can still smart, it can still, and you can very easily fall into old habits. Let's be really conscious of that. That is all it is. It's old habits that we learned because we felt hurt, we felt pain, and so we put barriers up and boundaries up where they were barriers to begin with, because we didn't have the emotional intelligence to have those boundaries in place. But we've been teaching ourselves that. We've been teaching ourselves how to remove those barriers that, yeah, okay, it kept the outside world out, but it also kept us stuck inside ourselves. We weren't able to show up. We weren't able to show others who we are in an authentic way. So it's a twofold. But when we set boundaries, that is, this is who I am. I am open, I am vulnerable, I am expansive, I am looking at everything in front of me with no judgment, with no expectation, with no preconceived ideas. And I am asking that you do the same. And that's challenging. It's it's very comfortable and it's very easy when you're with your soul tribe, because they get it, they understand it, they've been on that journey. But when you're in everyday life, that can be really challenging, because you're going to meet people from all sorts of walks of life, all sorts of backgrounds, and have all sorts of differing beliefs. They will be on different cycles, and so it's a mash of all those different time cycles of where people are at. And so to hold yourself in that vulnerable space and hold those boundaries can take a lot of work. They certainly take a lot of conscious awareness. And sometimes we will have our good days and our bad days, and we will be better at it one day, and then we will think that we failed miserably. But let's remember, there is no failure. It's a case of that moment. How am I showing up today? What am I able to show up as today? Am I being the best version I can be today? And I've done a video on that before. It's not about being the best of the best. It's about being the best that you can in that moment. And that is good enough, and being okay with that being good enough. And so a lot of the push-pull and a lot of the navigation that takes place is inwards. What stories are still running in our psyche that we need to reframe? And it is about turning up that volume, showing up for ourselves, holding ourselves accountable for the BS we're telling ourselves, but at the same time being gentle, being kind, being loving, being nurturing. It's about think of yourself the easiest way that I do it, and everybody's different. I'm not saying you have to do it this way because it works. It worked for me, but when I was, and still now when I catch myself, because I'm not perfect by any means of the imagination, it's how would I guide a dear friend through that process? How would I guide a child through that process? And that's not to say that you're immature or you need to apply a childlike joy. I would always recommend, because there is nothing like pure childlike joy to lift the vibrations. But it is thinking about, being conscious about how you communicate with yourself. And when you start to be kind, when you start to be nurturing, when you adopt a healthy relationship with yourself, and that healthy relationship only builds through being mindful, through being conscious. How are you treating yourself? What are you feeding? What are you watering yourself with? What are you feeding your mind with? How are you talking to yourself? How are you letting others treat you? When you bring all of those aspects into play and you start listening to that inner dialogue and you start to reframe little by little, and it is a journey, it is a process, it is about practice. When you start to do that, you start to be able to be content, be at peace with who you are. And it doesn't matter if people don't understand you. You may still get that initial smart, well, they didn't understand what I meant by then, but you won't feel the need to overextend and explain yourself. And that was a big one of me. I was always trying to explain myself. And to be honest, they didn't understand because they didn't want to understand. And it took me a very long time to learn that. That's not to say that sometimes people just didn't understand because I wasn't being clear in my communication, because, as I've said, I'm human. There are those occasions, and it's about using your discernment. Were you clear in your communication then? And so you may have somebody that is your sidekick that you say to them, well, when I say blah, 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 do you know what I mean by that? But that will get less and less. The more you step into your true authentic self, the less that will become. But there is nothing wrong with doing that to begin with, as long as you're not using them as a permanent crutch. If it's because you're trying out something new, because you're experimenting, because you're making these changes and you're still not quite comfortable with it and you're still not quite sure of yourself, then yeah, have that loyal sidekick that you can kind of bump things off of. But also remember, you will come across people that just don't want to understand. They're choosing not to understand, in which case no explanation is needed and no further energy should be expelled on those people. They know what you're about, they've seen your true authentic self, and if they have an interest later on, they can come back to you. It's not about, they didn't want to know about me, I'm not going to have anything to do with them. No, it's not that at all. It's about just going, okay, that doesn't interest them. I don't interest them. What I have to say doesn't interest them. And I'm okay with that. I'm at peace with that. And as I said, if they do come back at a later date, fantastic. If they don't, not an issue. There's thousands of people out there. There's thousands of light workers now that are actually starting to really ignite the flame within them and starting to illuminate and step into the self-actualization that was suppressed for so long in so many of us. And it will be horses for horses. We all gravitate to different people. We all have a different energetic signature, and so our resonance will align better with somebody there for that particular thing or project, and align here for something else, and align there for something else. Be accepting of that. Understand yourself, understand your resonance. Don't force the relationships that come to you or that you want to build. This is where we come unstuck in life. When we start to force those relationships, allow them to unfold naturally. And yes, when we're in a working environment, there will be people that we gel with more than others. There will be people that you say something to and they kind of side-eye you and you think, okay, right, fine, okay. They didn't want to understand that, or they didn't understand that, whichever the case is. And again, it comes down to discernment. But it's about being okay with that. And accepting them. It's not, oh, they didn't want to know about that. Oh, there is no them in us. We're all connected. So it's okay, it's not their time, or my frequency doesn't resonate with them at this moment, and it may never will. Doesn't mean that you can't be cordial. It doesn't mean that you can't have a relationship. It's just the relationship will be limited, because there will not be that expanse of exchange, of deep exchange. It will be a surface level relationship. And it's about getting comfortable with that, because that's the other aspect that empaths and sensitives and starseeds and all the other labels that are on the spiritual path really get hung up on, is because usually we are very, very deep thinkers and we want to connect on a very deep level. We can have a tendency to, one, scare the living shit out of some people because they have never come across anybody that wants a deep relationship, and so it's so alien to them. They're like, oh, get away from me, what do you want, what do you want? So be aware of that. But two, some people are only comfortable, they can only meet themselves on a surface level, and so they can only comfortable meeting others. Remember, we can only meet ourselves to the depth. We can only meet others to the depth we can meet ourselves. So keep that in mind as well, because more often than not, rebuffs, rejection, misunderstandings have absolutely nothing to do with us. And that is not said from an egoic state, that is just an observation. When there has been a misunderstanding, it's usually because that other person is in, I don't know, maybe you have a conversation and somebody doesn't hear you, and as an empath, they don't want to talk to me, they don't want to talk to me. It may be that their head is so full of other stuff they have going on in their lives that they genuinely didn't hear you, even though they're looking you in the eye and nodding their head. And so it's about being aware of that. It's about stepping away from taking everything personally at a superficial level, and stepping back, taking a breath and going, okay, checking in with yourself. Did I explain that? Do I need to check? Is it that they're not interested? Is it because they are just preoccupied with something else? But not modifying who you are and what you need to say in that moment. Please remember, the most profound changes that are affected through the verbal word are rarely acknowledged at the time. Things slot into place after it's been processed. And so I hope that has helped. If you liked the video, hit that like button. If you've not yet subscribed, then please subscribe. And I shall see you on the next video. Take care. Blessings to you all.